Welcome back to Real Time Systems. My name is Renuka, Assistant Professor in Department of Electronics and Communication Engineering, Maharaja Institute of Technology, Mysore. In previous class, we had studied about the mechanism to handle an interrupt. Okay, so today let us study in detail as to how we can actually go ahead and understand how an interrupt is being handled in real-time systems, and when it comes to multi-level or multi-level interrupt handling capabilities, will the real-time system be challenging? Let us try to understand about this. Okay. Hardware vectored interrupts. Structure to identify which of the external devices has generated an interrupt. So, how does the CPU understand, okay, which is the priority, which is the highest priority or the lowest priority interrupt that needs to be handled? So, let us try to understand that in the vectored interrupts. A mechanism to find the possible source of interrupt to prevent more than one IRQ at any one time. So what is IRQ? IRQ, interrupt request, is nothing but a signal which is generated by the hardware or external device, which is trying to communicate to a CPU saying that now I have to send information to you regarding this particular operation. Okay, so it tries to request a CPU for its operation so that the information could be transmitted. For example, if you take a simple pen drive, okay, so now you are going to connect it. So as soon as you connect, there will be a pop-up on your screen saying that there is this particular drive, okay, removable drive, wherein you have all the contents. So now how will that information be read? So within a matter of few seconds, what happens? As soon as you insert the pen drive in USB, what will happen? There will be a signal which will be sent to the CPU, and it will try to acknowledge saying that yes, now you can go ahead and transfer. So before that, there is a request sent by the pen drive saying that hello, I am here, can you please make sure that you read the contents, can you allow me to transfer the data onto your system, okay, so that I can read the contents. So what happens? The CPU says, yeah, now you can send, because now I am not doing any important aspect as of now. I can take care of this immediate high priority interrupt. Okay, so now when it says, it acknowledges, and then the information is read, then you get a pop-up on your screen, and then you can save the contents or retrieve the contents. If you are done, what do? There will be the completion of the task. So now if you just take that simple example here, so what happens? There is an important signal, that is interrupt request has to be sent by the device to the CPU, so that in its program counter it adds up an event, and then it tries to make sure that it sends an acknowledgement. Okay, and it gives a acknowledgement saying that you are ready for transmitting the data or receiving the data. Fine. So the process of arbitration involves assigning priority to various interrupts. So priorities are very important in interrupt handling, because there are not all interrupts has a greater priority. So it has to first understand which is having a highest priority. Okay, so to overcome this, there is one technique what is called as a daisy chain. Okay, so if you just see this block diagram here, you have a device 1, device 2, device 3 and device 4, and you have input supply which is a high 5 volts, okay, and you have IEI, okay, it is called as interrupt enable input, or you can say interrupt enable in, and IEO is called as interrupt enable out. Okay, and if you just look into the first block, you have high for all these signals. So IEO of first device or device 0 will be connected to point of contact. What are those? One is IEI and IEO. IEI is interrupt enable in, interrupt enable out. Okay, so all are maintained at high, which means there are no interrupts as of now. Okay, if you just look into the second block diagram, you see that the first device, that is device 0, is still high. The both IEIO and IEI are all high, and here if you just see device 2, okay, IEO is at low. What does it mean? So it is trying to interrupt. So it is trying to send an interrupt signal saying that I have some important function to perform because it has come to a higher priority level. Can you please go ahead and check what is the, what kind of device is being connected, so that I can send the data, data ahead. Okay. So the first thing that we have to notice, all the devices in a daisy chain, but when IEO goes low, which means that there is an interrupt that has to be taken care of. Okay, there is a request. So there is a device which is trying to interrupt the normal operation. Okay. Now, so daisy chain here again, when it continues, what happens? The device 0 is still at high. Device 1 tries to say that I'm sorry, I also have an interrupt that needs to be addressed. Okay. So what will happen when it has to be addressed? Then what will happen? IEO becomes low, correct? So now this is how it looks like. First device high, then you have high. So the input for a device 1 is high, but there is a low IEO. Okay, and device 2, IEI is low and IEO is also low at device 2. Okay, so there are different permutation combinations here, right? So now you need to understand when an interrupt has to be raised, acknowledged, and when it has to be completed. So what is the priority? How it's going to set the priority when two devices now after one after the other is trying to communicate to CPUs that there is an interrupt that needs to be addressed. So now in this scenario, let us try to understand the whole mechanism with this help of a simple tabular column. One is the input, enable interrupt, other is the output, right? So if both are high, okay, then there are absolutely no interrupts. Okay, then if IEI is high and IEO of any device is low, which means that it is trying to raise an interrupt. Okay, now there is a request which is being sent. So which request has to be acknowledged? IEI is high and IEO is low. That is, output is low and input is high. When it is high, then it has to be acknowledged. Okay, when the input is low and output is high, what will happen? It should not be responded. So IEI of input, the input request, if it is low, what does it mean? That it says that it is suspended, so there are no operation, it should not be accepted. The only condition for the interrupt to be enabled or a request to be raised is when the input is high and the output is low. Okay. If the input is low and the output is also low, then it has to be completely suspended. Acknowledgement should not be sent for such kind of device. Okay. So now the CPU knows that when input and output both are low, I should not acknowledge that particular device. So what should it do? It should next trace out which input has high and which output is low. So it tries to acknowledge only to those devices where the input is high and the output is low. So after completion of, in this example, after the completion of one interrupt, okay, that is the interrupt, because there is a second interrupt that has been raised by device 1, isn't it? Earlier it was device 2 first which tried to raise an interrupt request. Now you have device 1. So what happens? Since it is a chain, the whole operation will be suspended, because it is the device 1 which has to be addressed because it is high, and then you have low. But to device 2 it will be low and low. So what happens? There will be a suspension of the interrupt at device 2. So first device 1 will be addressed. Once the acknowledgement is considered and it is completed, the task is completed, then what does it do? There will be a high at device 2. So what happens? Device 2 will be taken care for the second, okay, given as a second priority, then it would be dealt. Okay. Once it is done with its interrupt handling, after getting the acknowledgement and after completion of the interrupt, what happens? All the signals, okay, for each and every device, okay, would be high. So which means that it has completed the entire cycle. So initially it had started with no interrupts, then it is a second device which tried to interrupt, raise a request. Then what happens? Simultaneously there was a first device which tries to raise an interrupt along with the second. So what did it do? The CPU suspended the second, took care of the first, okay, it handled the first, and then after handling, it then it took care of the second device, and after completing the request of the second device, then what did it do? It resumed the normal operation, wherein all the devices input and output will be high. So all the interrupts were handled. Doing this, the multiple level interrupt handling was easier, and the priority setting, whichever priority will be set, the highest will be taken care of, daisy chain. There were no such ambiguity in obtaining the result. But what happened was, there was certain drawbacks in the daisy chain. What is that? The priority based on the position and cannot be changed. So what happened? Whenever there is a device 1, device 2, device 3, device 4 being connected, the first device which is connected or close to the CPU will be addressed first. The device which is closer to the CPU will be addressed first. So it couldn't be changed with the help of the software. That was a drawback in a daisy chain. Okay, and IEI propagation through the chain. So there is a IEI which has to propagate every time. There is the acknowledgement which has to be sent throughout to all the devices. Until unless IEI is high, so we will not be able to go ahead and check with the interrupt handling capability of the entire devices, right? So IEI has to be, it has to pass through the entire chain. Okay, so these are the two drawbacks of daisy chain, but definitely it overcame to set the priority level where if there is a high priority interrupt that has to be addressed first, that would be taken care, and low priority would be taken care later. Okay. To overcome such issues, there was another method, okay, wherein you could handle the different kinds of interrupt, and that is called vectoring using a priority encoding technique. So priority encoding technique is one such technique which will try to make sure that the priorities are set, and instead of consuming lot of time from the CPU, the acknowledgement signal to be taken care by sending a request by each and every device, instead of a delay in transition time which will reduce the performance, there was what is called as a priority coding technique which came into being. Okay, so what does this process do? Here you have an interrupt detection. You can see this block, that is the interrupt detection. This entire block is nothing but your CPU, central processing unit, and this is your interfacing output. Okay, this is interfacing output. So now this is an interface which has to be set. Okay, it has to be detected by an interrupt handler in your CPU. So for which you have IRQ. This IRQ is a very important signal, because this IRQ signal, if it goes high, only then the request is formulated. It is sent from external device to your CPU. So if IRQ is high, then there is an interrupt, right? So this IRQ is high only when there is a priority set by priority encoder, which tries to, what are the devices which are trying to interrupt 3-bit code, which will help in identifying what are the active interrupts that could be handled at that instant of time. Okay, so if IRQ is high now, which means it will say that, so D0, 1, 2 don't have an interrupt. So 3, 4 and 5, okay, there are 3 bits, 3-bit code that would be generated saying that these 3 lines are having an interrupt. Okay, but we don't know about the priority, isn't it? There are active interrupts are there in while transferring the data in the data lines. Now the priority encoder, what does it do is, it will give a 3 coded information, okay, from IO1 to I7. That is, this is a register wherein you have the information being set saying that if IO0 has the highest priority. So the address line has a low value, so lower the value, it has the highest priority because it is closer to your interrupt detection. So IO0 has the highest priority, IO7 has a least priority. Okay, so now if there is a 3 interrupt levels, okay, 3 lines or data lines which are interrupted from an external devices, then IO1, IO2, IO3 will be set. Okay, and it will be sent through for a interrupt request. So IRQ becomes high based on IO0 to IO7. I7 is nothing but the interrupt lines with a low priority. The lower level here is IO0, which is having a highest priority. So the CPU tries to understand that IO0 has to be dealt first, a request has to be raised and it has to be acknowledged first rather than I7. Okay. So this is one of the ways in which priority encoding techniques was understood or the process was dealt. Okay. The process here mainly talks about priority determination, whether it is having a higher priority or it is having a lower priority. Then 3-bit code specifies the number of interrupt lines which are active in the data bus. If more than one interrupts are there, okay, what happens? Supplies the highest priority. So highest priority will be given to the lower value of I. Okay. The line causes IRQ to become active. So this raise IRQ to go high. So if IRQ is high, then there is an interrupt request. Okay. Then line with lowest number has a highest priority. So here we have, these are the lines. So if IO0 and IO5 are there, then what does it mean? IO0 has the highest priority, I5 will have a low priority. So this is about what is meant by priority encoding, how a priority is being acknowledged by the CPU for handling any interrupts. Next you have what is called as multi-level interrupts. So why do we have to understand about multi-level interrupts is in a real-time operating system, okay, it is not just one interrupt. Okay, you have multiple devices trying to communicate to CPU at the same instant of time. So it becomes very tedious for any CPU to understand who has to be addressed first. Okay, for which we need to understand what kind of issues or problem a CPU could encounter. Okay, so now that could be easily understood by a simple diagram here. If you just know, if let us take an example of an application program or a main task. We know that level 0 has higher priority, level 1 will have lesser priority than level 0, level 2 will have the least priority, okay, in the standards, right, because we have justified there that level 0 will have the highest priority, correct. So here we have clock interrupts, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, there are 4 clock pulses here. So if these clock pulses here, what you see in the diagram are the interrupts that need to be addressed by a CPU when a main task is being performed, what will happen? Now let us try to understand that. So for the first clock pulse here, clock 1, okay, you have a raising edge and you have a falling edge. So at this instant of time, clock 1, what will happen? There is an interrupt request being sent to a CPU, okay. Interrupt service request is being raised, okay, in the clock routine and it will be acknowledged by the CPU. So during this time the task will be completed. So during clock 1, okay, when the interrupt is being handled, there could be another printer raise an interrupt saying that, it says that I have to interrupt now during your main routine program. So please kindly allow me to set an interrupt. So it tries to raise an interrupt at clock 4. What will happen at clock 4? Because until unless we know that by now all the clock pulses which has the highest priority has to be dealt. But unfortunately what happens during the second clock, when it is trying to send a clock routine, ISR which is being sent for the second clock pulse, there is an interrupt which has to be addressed by which has to be addressed because it is a printer, it is the highest priority. Now what will happen? Though there is a request from a printer, until unless there is a completion of level 0 task, it will not acknowledge any interrupt of the lower level. Though it is high priority, until unless level 0 is completed, it will not go for level 1. Though it is higher priority, correct? During this course, what happens? By the end of second pulse, okay, the second request would have completed, okay. The second pulse, that is clock interrupt, which for level 0, okay, for first clock is done and the second clock is done. The second clock, what would happen? There is a small request saying that I'm sorry, I know that you have requested, but unfortunately I'm not able to handle your request. So it says that can I just suspend your request as of now because I am not able to handle your request. So that happens at level 5. So this is for the clock 5, what happens? There is a state when it says that I am not able to go ahead and acknowledge your service routine. So printer routine ISR 1 at level 1, what happens? It tries to raise an acknowledgement saying that the task has to be suspended. When it is raised, meanwhile you have the third clock pulse of level 0 being addressed. During this course, you have a higher priority signal being should have been accepted, but it has not been accepted because it is still taking a higher. It thinks that clock pulse, that is level 0, is very important rather than the printer. It is not a proper way of CPU to address the different kinds of interrupts that has to be handled. Okay, to make CPU understand which is the highest priority interrupt, there is what is called as masking. Masking is one such software program which will enable to make sure that it masks all the not just the low priority, but also for unduly happened action of any interrupt could also be handled with the help of masking. So let me just go ahead and tell you how actually it functions. So in real-time system, single interrupt is definitely not accepted. Interrupt is very fast, it has to respond very quickly, but if there is a delay to respond to a higher priority interrupt, then the RTS fails, right? So highest priority is always set for level 0 here by default. What happens, irrespective of whether it is high priority or not, level 0 is taken as a highest priority. So in this particular example, we have ISR, that is interrupt service request, 0 signal, level 0 for 1, 2, 3 pulses are being considered, and printer generates an interrupt request at 4. So until unless ISR 0 is completed, it will not accept the high priority level, though it is very important. Okay. So suspending the interrupt at 6, it tries to suspend the interrupt. So a return has to be done by the interrupt at level for 7th pulse, and then IR finishes all the level 0 interrupts and then make sure it goes back and return to the main program. Okay, because it has interrupt is nothing but it will stop the normal routine, and then after the completion of the routine, the interrupt routines, then it has to resume the main program, isn't it? So what happens? It returns. So the call instruction and the return instructions are very important in interrupt handling mechanism. Return will always make sure it goes back to the main program, and the main program is resumed from there. Okay. So the ability to provide ISR to be restricted to the high priority rather than the routine execution. So instead of having routine execution of level 0 being completed, there has to be a priority set to address the interrupt which is having a more highest priority, okay, like that of a printer here, to be addressed first rather than the normal routine. Okay. So masking is achieved in daisy chain because you know that it is going to suspend any other action and take care of the first highest priority interrupt that will be handled, and then it will go back lower priority interrupt, and then it would be justified in case of a daisy chain. But in case of priority encoding technique, what happens is the masking, okay, is not achieved here. Okay. So device must receive a signal from CPU on return from the interrupt service routine in order that it can set IEO line high and hence permit access to the system by low priority devices. So it has to make sure that it has to mask all the low priority devices and enable the high priority devices. So masking is one such technique. So what is this interrupt masking then? So mask register is nothing but loaded by a software and used to inhibit the low priority interrupt lines. So masking is nothing but a software program that is usually done in order to mask the low priority interrupts. Okay, it is possible to mask out any interrupt, not just for a low priority. For example, if you take an alarm system, okay, what happens in an alarm system? An interrupt request is been identified and it has been enabled. It has been handled. Okay, once it is handled, what should be done? The CPU should not waste time in sending a regular signal, continuous signal to set a routine, isn't it? There are multiple other operations that could be performed during that time. So it could, after enabling, it should be masked, and then a next action, due course action has to be considered, isn't it? So that has to be dealt in case of a masking. So it is not just the priority, low priority level interrupts is not just masked, but it can also be the levels which have which has to be temporarily suspended can also be dealt using a masking technique. Okay, so the ability to mask out selected levels provides software controlled priority reallocation. So it tries to reallocate it reallocates the software control priorities, and masking is enabled. How is that done? If you just see this block diagram, you have a CPU here, okay, and you have a priority coders. These are the codes that will be set, okay, based on which the lowest value will have the highest priority, right? So though it has been connected here, you have an AND gate, okay, the two AND gates are connected to a mask register which will mask all the low priority signal. Okay, this is how the information is in IRQ is enabled or disabled based on the masking register. Okay. And then what is the actual program flow in a mask register? Because you have told that a masking register is nothing but a simple software program. So what is the main function of this? So this is a normal flow. If you just see here, this content has been saved, then you have to have a new mask register set, isn't it? Then later on you have to enable. So once there is a new masking register being set, you have to enable the high priority interrupt. Okay, and after that you have a device service to the device. So if there is any printer, if there is any scanner that is trying to interrupt, so that has to be serviced. So we have to allow the interrupts to be handled. Then disable interrupts. Once the complete operation has been performed in service devices, it has to be disabled. Once it is disabled, store the values, and then that will be present in the restore register. The information will be there in the restore. So it is not just saving, it will restore the information. So then you have to enable the interrupts. So after this, after masking, so it is just like saying a temporary halting the entire process for certain duration of time, so that the high priority interrupts will be handled, dealt, and then it comes back to the main program, unmask all the contents and get back to the main execution, or resumes to the main execution of the program. So this is the stepwise sequence that has been written here. First save the work in the environment, then it says current mask to be saved, new mask to be sent out, interrupts can be enabled, then interrupt can be commenced, then completion of interrupt can be disabled, then previous masked register can be stored, then working environment has to be restored, the interrupts now can be enabled and returned from the interrupt executed. So these are this flow, or you can say a steps of sequences that will be dealt by a masking register. Okay. So these kind of operation in certain computers is dealt automatically. So it need not save, it need not restore, because it need a lot of memory space, isn't it? So certain computers have automatic disabling of low interrupting signals, avoiding restoring mask register, and save is avoided. So instead of saving is again you have to save the information temporarily in some register, isn't it? So it need a lot of space. Okay, for each and every interrupt, especially in a real time system, you have multiple interrupts. So you have to save a lot of contents for longer time till the interrupt is being handled. So that is automatically eliminated in certain computers. Okay. So DMA, that is direct memory access, there are three methods. One is called as a burst mode, distributed mode, and you have a cycle stealing mode. So let us just know what it means. Burst mode, DMA controller takes over the data highways of the computer and locks out the CPU for the period of time necessary to transfer 256 bytes between fast memory and backing memory. So the main disadvantage of burst mode is affects response time in RTS to an external event, and because of it, it cannot be accepted, okay, because it takes a lot of time. You have distributed mode. So DMA controller takes occasional machine cycles from the CPU controller and uses each cycle to transfer a byte of information between fast memory and backing memory. On a real-time system, loss of machine cycle will be there. So if you have, because there will be no count of exactly how many machine cycles, 200 machine cycle would have lost, but it has a count of just 100 machine cycle. So this is one of the drawbacks. So that is time lapse. Cycle stealing method, transfer data during cycles when the CPU is not using the data bus. Program proceeds at normal rate and unaffected by DMA data transfer. So it is one of the slowest mode of getting the interrupt handled, okay, between the fast memory and the backing store. So now comparison of the data transfer techniques. A regular check of interrupts has to occur. Then generation of appropriate test routine for the interrupt system is very difficult. Proper testing is necessary to generate random interrupt pattern. If there is any random interrupt pattern, that has to be addressed. Carry out detailed analysis of the result has to be dealt. Data rate inefficient due to overhead involved in interrupt service routine. So there is a requirement, there is a need for any alternate way of high rate of transfer in the substitution of hardware for the software control and the use of DMA techniques. So there is definitely a need for the better interrupt handling capabilities. So today we have dealt about different ways in which we can actually handle an interrupt and acknowledge and complete the task. Next, this completes the second module. Thank you.